guys, today we're going to be doing one of my favorite things. We're going to be trying out a new brand. This brand is called Glisten Cosmetics and they just came out with a new palette, and this is their Totally Botany palette. I can't wait to dig into this. When I first saw the sneak peek, I was like, oh my god, like that is such a unique color story that I had to. I couldn't help it, you know? So I have showed this in a previous video, but I haven't used it yet. So here is what the palette looks like. I think that this color story is so cool and so inspiring, and it confuses me. And when something makes me go,
I don't know what I would do with this,
that's usually a good sign because I know it's going to challenge me. I know I'm going to come up with looks that I wouldn't normally have done just because the color story is so interesting. So the cool thing about this brand is that for every palette they sell, they plant a tree, which is like so cool. Like I'm all here for supporting tree planting. So we're going to be trying out this palette today. So this palette is actually fairly inexpensive. It is sold from the UK though, so the prices are in pounds. So this palette is £22, which really for such a large palette, like if you've seen the Juvia's Place palettes, the pans are basically the same. So this is a giant palette. It's really, really big. So we're gonna just start off by swatching this palette like I always do in my first impressions, and I'll probably actually do more looks with this palette because it's hard for me to promise to do a 3 looks 1 palette with all of the palettes that I buy now, because I get a lot of new eyeshadow palettes and I simply just don't have time to do multiple looks with all of them. So the ones that I choose to do it with are going to be palettes that are either like something that I feel like I need more time with to figure out what I feel about the palette, or something that really inspires me. And I feel like this is going to be one of those palettes, I mean, unless it's like crap, which let's hope it's not, but I have really high expectations. So gonna go ahead and swatch this, just gonna swatch from left to right, top to bottom, like I always do. And then we will talk about the swatches after, and then we can go ahead and, you know, do a look with this. Okay, so my first impression on the swatches, just like by feeling them, I felt like some of the mattes were a little bit sheer. They're also very hardly pressed into the pan, so I can't imagine there being a lot of kick up in these. But they also kind of reminded me a little bit of the Juvia's Place mattes, which I love the Juvia's Place mattes, so I'm excited to try these on the eyes. I feel like they're going to perform a lot better on the eyes than they did on my arm. Now, I do feel like the swatches came out looking pretty good, but like I said, the mattes are a little bit sheer, and this one seemed like it might be a little bit patchy, but we'll just see what happens when we put them on the eyes. Swatches don't mean anything, it's just a representation of the color story, but it's still nice to kind of just feel the shadows and sort of make up my mind like before I start and see if I'm right about my assumptions, you know? So I'm gonna go ahead and prime my eyes with my MAC Paint Pot and Soft Ochre like I always do, and then we can get into playing with this. I am so excited. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and start by taking Mint and put that into my crease. Now I will say, just even from the swatches here, I do wish that Mint and Shrub were just a little bit different. I mean, they look very similar. Like looking on my arm here, like these two colors, I can't really tell the difference between the two. So that's like my only complaint about the color story, is that I wish that they had just tweaked one of the shades just a tiny bit. But let's start off by taking Mint. And there is actually a little bit of kick up, which I was not really expecting. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but just an observation at this point. So I'm just gonna go ahead and try to build this up as much as I am able to in my crease here. So I don't get like full pigmentation right away, but they seem to build very, very nicely, which is great, and it makes the shadows easy to work with if you're someone who don't like, you know, a lot of pigmentation all at once, because sometimes it's easier if you take it slow and build up your shadows, even though for me, I usually like to have full pigmentation right away. I'm honestly so impressed by how this color is laying down. I mean, this is building up so beautifully and it's very easy to work with. This is not at all, honestly, what I expected when swatching this palette, which is another reason why swatches don't mean anything. And I really love the tone of this. I don't know if I have a color like this in my collection, which is why one of the reasons why I wanted this palette, because I felt like it would be very unique to my collection. Even though I have so many eyeshadows, I still feel like, you know, there are colors that exist that I don't have, especially in mattes. Because I feel like a lot of the time brands tend to not come out with like the most unique mattes, and they focus more on coming out with unique shimmers. But I am such a lover of like unique mattes that having a matte like this just makes me so happy. So I am really, really, really impressed by this. So let's see, what do I want to do next? I don't really have a plan for this, which, you know, story of my life. So like I said, there's a little bit of kick up in this, but not at all as bad as some other palettes that I own. So I think what I want to use to deepen this up with is I could go in with pine or cacti. I could really use either. I could also use this brown. I don't think going in with this kind of pink purple shade is a good idea. I feel like these are going to muddy up quite a bit. So I'm probably going to go in with this one, which was called Pine. This is such a beautiful teal color. It's more of like a green teal. I feel like it's leaning more green. So I'm going to use that on the outer corner of my eye here, and I'm probably going to go ahead and pull it through my crease as well. This is also such a beautiful tone of blue, or teal I should say, but I really like that. That's beautiful. So far, just from using these two colors, I'm like almost wondering if these are made in the same factory as Juvia's Place. Because the formula feels so similar, and I love that because you guys know I love Juvia's Place. They have one of my favorite matte formulas just because I find them so easy to work with, and they're just like foolproof. I find Juvia's Place's mattes to be one of those shadows that I feel like are just very reliable. Even if it comes to, you know, like darker shadows. The only mattes that I have a problem with from Juvia's Place is, or I should say the only matte, and I have a lot of palettes, and it's the purple and the Zulu palette. Other than that, I find all of their mattes to be super easy to work with, and like I said, very reliable. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is like almost the same formula. So I'm gonna go ahead and move down to my lower lash line now, and I'm actually gonna use Cacti, and what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put that on the outer part of my lower lash line and then like connect it with the outer corner that I have going on here. So I'm first just going to go ahead and smudge this on my lower lash line. And then I'm also going to take it into my outer corner here. I don't know how well this is going to layer just because I have so many shadows on my lid right now that this is probably not going to be the best idea. And yeah, it doesn't really want to stick, but my eye is also watering a little bit, so that could have something to do with that. So I'm not gonna go crazy and try to fix that right now because I feel like my eye is kind of wet. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on this side instead. And I definitely wouldn't be surprised if this color in particular won't layer because it's just a hard color to get to layer on other colors I've found. It could also just be that this color is just not that different from the one that I used to deepen up the outer corner with. So that's why it's not really showing up that much. I feel like this color is definitely going to perform better if you put it down, you know, on its own as the first color and not trying to layer it on top of two other colors. So I don't really think that this is the color's fault. This is definitely my fault for, I mean, I knew this was going to happen, so I'm not going to say anything bad about the shadow because of it. But you can see it is definitely building up a little bit, and it's just adding a little bit more dimension here. And I have a little bit of fallout, which not a huge deal. I'm going to try to build up this side a little bit. Like I said, my eye is kind of watering just on the outer part here, so if things are starting to get a little bit messy, that is not the palette's fault. And it looks like I am able to build up the shadow. It just takes a little bit of time and a lot of dipping into the pan. I'm also just going to dip back into that first shadow that I used that was called Mint, and just make sure that the upper part here is nice and blended. I don't know why all of my looks turn out to be like winged out. I feel like it's just what my eye shape wants to do, and I'm not mad about it. I honestly really like the gradient that's going on in my eyes right now. I think that's looking really, really pretty. So what do I want to do for the rest of this? Let's see if I can wipe away this fallout. Yeah, that was honestly so easy. So what do I want to do next? I do want to try out a lot of these shimmers in this palette. Sorry, I'm just going to go back and a little bit more of that blue here. I mean, that blend is just beautiful. So I think I want to do a bit of like a different color combination here, and I'm first going to go into Fern, which is the shimmery green. This one is so beautiful. It's got a bit of like a gold shift to it, and I'm going to put that on most of my lid, like I want to say 2/3 of my lid, and then I think for the rest I'm going to go in with that pink like in the inner corner and see how that looks, because I feel like the pink is going to look really nice wrapped around to that blue on the lower lash line. I'm not sure how it's going to look with that green, but I do like the combination of green and pink. I used to not like that, but I've really grown to like it, so that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and spray this like I always do with my shimmers, because I just find that the pigmentation is always more intense when you do, and I'm just gonna pop that like on the middle of my lid here. I will say it's a little bit hard to pick up the shadow in the pan because it's very hardly pressed, so I have to kind of dig my brush in there, which doesn't really bother me as long as it doesn't get hard pan or anything like that. But the shadow is really, really pretty. And I feel like it goes very well with like all of the other shadows in this palette. I feel like that's a great shimmer to put in here, because it just makes everything flow together very nicely. And I don't want this to be a structured look at all. I just want everything to kind of just blend together, you know? And I do think that the shadow would probably perform better over a glitter glue. I think it would look more intense, but I'm not really looking for that in this look, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put this on. So I am experiencing just a little bit of hard pan. You can probably see that very easily here. And I did not spray my brush before I picked up the shadow, because I never do that, and I basically got it the first time I put my brush into this, so I don't know if that's going to end up being a problem, but we're gonna go ahead and just try out the pink now. So I'm gonna go into Peony, and I'm going to spray this as well. Obviously I picked it up on my brush before I spray it, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put that on the rest of my lid here. And that is a beautiful, beautiful pink. Just gently going to mix that into the green just by tapping over where the two colors meet. And I totally could have done a half cut crease in this look, but I have not been in the mood to do cut creases lately, so we're not doing that. Now, I'm not having any problems at all with this shadow getting hard pan, so I feel like it could just be the green. And it could have just been me having a bit of a too wet brush, or a bit of a too wet brush, bit of a wet, too wet. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. A brush that was too wet. Too wet of a brush. I think that's what I was trying to say. Man, sometimes like my brain just blanks and I feel like I don't know English at all. And other times I feel like I don't know Norwegian, which is kind of funny because that is my native language. It was so funny when I was home, because after having not spoken Norwegian, which again is my native language, I feel like I just kind of forget so many words that it's easier for me now to communicate in English, because I think in English too. So going home to Norway and like trying to have conversations with people and my family and stuff, sometimes I found myself wanting to just like start speaking English because I felt like I would articulate myself better. But then I know they would totally judge me and be like, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you Norwegian? So I didn't do that. But language is a weird, man. Once you start thinking in another language, like you kind of just forget, or maybe it's just me, but I forget things, because if you're not like constantly thinking about it, it just kind of slips out of your head, you know? You can only remember so many things. So what's the next step I want to do here? I think I'm gonna go back into that blue and just kind of bring that in a little bit more down here. And just to lighten up my inner corner a tad bit, I'm going to use my Wet n Wild Mega Glow highlighter in the shade Crystal High, and I'm just going to take that on a very, very small pencil brush, and I'm going to place that just right in my inner corner here, just for a little bit of extra brightness. Just like so. I feel like that made a really big difference. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm not having the best day filming today. I don't know, I feel like I'm like stumbling over my words a lot, and I can't really like say what it is I'm trying to say, and I'm sitting here thinking like, how am I supposed to edit all of this together, because I've repeated myself so many times. So if this video is a little bit choppy, I'm so sorry. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up the rest of my eyes now, and I need to put something in my waterline. I'm thinking I want to do Prance by Colourpop. I think that could be kind of cute. And then I'll do some liner mascara, put on a lipstick, and I'll be back and tell you my first impression thoughts on this palette. Alright, so here is the final look. I really like how this turned out. So for my lip today, I used the Ultra Matte Lip by Colourpop in the shade At Me. And then on top of that, I used the Ophir Gloss in the shade Orchid. And I think that kind of completed the look. I think I like this lip combo a lot. So as for my first impression on this palette, so far I really like this. I had a good time working with it, but there's definitely a few things I would do different next time I use it. So like I said, I definitely want to do a 3Looks1 palette with this palette coming up after I'm done with like all of my new releases that I still want to get through. So next I'm probably going to do my OMFG Pretty in Pastel palette, even though it's not really a new release, but it's a new to me palette that got sent to me and I would like to feature it. So that's probably going to come up next, but I mean, I really like this palette. Like I said, there's a few things that I would like to do different next time. One of them being I probably want to do a cut crease next time I put shimmers on my lid, especially if I want to try to put a pink on top of a green. I felt like the pink isn't as opaque as I would like for it to be to layer on top of such a different colored matte. So next time I'll probably do like a half cut crease or something like that, or either use a glitter glue, like one or the other. Definitely want to try to see if I can get these shimmers to be more intense than they are. Also, not really sure what's going on with the hard pan here. I'm going to try to just gently scrape off the top layer of this and see if that helps and see if it happens again. If it does, probably going to be a little bit sad to be honest, but so far I'm happy with this palette. I can't wait to try it again. Also, I want to try this blue again without trying to layer it on top of, you know, a lot of other shadows, because blues just perform better on their own most of the time. So yeah, I mean, so far I'm happy with this. I can't wait to do more looks with this. I hope you guys want to see more looks with this because I'm excited. I'm excited to have found a new brand that, you know, I'm excited about. So yeah, that's going to some of my thoughts on the Botany palette. Botany. Wow, I'm so confused right now. Either way, that's going to some of my thoughts on this palette. So yeah, if you want to see some more content similar to this, I'll pop some up on the screen for you. And if you're new to my channel, I'd love it if you would consider subscribing, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.